Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. Just as a last few people join, I'm just going to put myself on mute. So if you just bear with us just for a minute or so, whilst any join, because it's literally just 7 o'clock, and then we'll get started. Thank you very much. So thank you everyone for joining this evening. This is the second of three consultation events that we're holding over the last week and over next week as well, around the proposals for the new North Dorchester Garden community. The first event was last week, was an in-person public consultation event at the United Church Hall in town, and the next one is next Tuesday, the 2nd of September, from 2 p.m. in the afternoon to 7 p.m. in the evening, again at the same venue, the United Church Dorchester. Just a reminder, this is a separate consultation to the consultation that's being carried out at the moment by Dorset Council around the draft emerging local plan. So there are a number of us here this evening to present the plans and answer any questions that are here from a range of disciplines. I'm not going to introduce them all in turn because they can introduce themselves at the time they're speaking and answering questions, but they're here to answer questions that you have, and we'll talk a second about how you might ask those questions. A number of them have been involved in the project for some time, and so hopefully they should be able to answer questions you have, whether it's about the particular discipline or the project in general. So a bit of housekeeping before we get on to talking about the project itself. So on the right-hand side, there's the ability to ask questions in a questions tab. So please do start to ask any questions you might have in there. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll hold a session where I will put your questions to members of the team. So start to put your questions there. And if there are any technical issues, please also use that tab to let us know. If you can't hear us, please do let us know in that tab. If you have any questions after this webinar, please do email us in. The email address is info@northdorchester.org.uk. Alternatively, give us a call on 0800 689 5209. The recording of this webinar will be uploaded to www.northdorchester.org.uk. So if people aren't able to attend, they'll be able to view it there. So I'm going to hand over to Mohan Sidhu from Granger and Tim Hoskinson from Wyatt to talk a bit about them. So, Mo.
Yeah, afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Steve. I'm Mohan Sidhu from Granger. Granger was founded in 1912, and we've moved on to become the UK's largest listed residential landlord. We operate, develop, design, and hold homes across the UK. Currently, we have a portfolio of over 11,000 homes, with another 6,000 in the pipeline, and we operate across the UK. Me personally, I've been involved in the North Dorchester Consortium for over 6 years now, working with Steve and the wider team.
Evening, everyone. I'm Tim Hoskinson. I'm the Planning Director at Wyatt Homes. Wyatt Homes are a Dorset-based regional house builder, set up 35 years ago by David Wyatt, who's our CEO. We're based in Poole. We operate across Dorset, Hampshire, Wiltshire and Somerset. We're proud of the places we build, and we're committed to building high quality, well-designed houses using local materials and locally based contractors. We build about 150 houses a year, and on average we employ between 300 and 400 people per day within our head office in Poole and across our various sites in Dorset, Hampshire and Wiltshire. We've got a proven track record of delivering high quality development which fits in well with the Dorset vernacular. And if anyone doesn't know us and wants to find out a bit more, have a look at our development on the edge of Wimborne, which has created a new entrance to Wimborne on the edge of the River Stour. Thanks, everyone.
Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. My name's Chris Patterson. I'm a town planning partner with Bidwells. I've got too many years I can remember experience of town planning. That includes planning, designing new towns, and outside of Bidwells, I'm also vice chair and trustee of Letchworth Garden City Heritage Foundation, which is the world's first garden city, and very relevant to this conversation this evening because North Dorchester is a garden community, so subscribes to some of the principles which founded Letchworth. So that's me, but let's talk about North Dorchester, why here and why now. This is a conversation which has been going on for many years, the last local plan for West Dorset, before it became Dorset Council, the planning inspector for the council's local plan highlighted that the county town had particular challenges. It had a huge imbalance between the number of jobs in the town and the high amount of in-commuting, because there's just not enough homes within Dorchester to keep pace with the number of jobs here. And as a result, and because of the the lack of affordability, a lot of our younger people are leaving Dorchester and living elsewhere. It's also, it does require a greater population to support Dorchester's role as the county town with its retail and cafe and cultural life. The important thing is if development around Dorchester reduces the pressure to find sites in rural areas which are less sustainable. So that's why there is a strong, compelling case for development around Dorchester. And these are just some statistics which just back that up. So at the moment, Dorset Council only has 3 years worth of housing land available. It means after 3 years, there will be no more land, and that moves forward to an 8,000 home deficiency. There's a lot of people say, well, what about second homes, or we've got too many second homes, or what about flats and apartments in the town centre? Well, yes, we need all of them, but that's not going to plug that gap. And there are only probably about 1.6% of homes in Dorset are second homes, and they're confined to the sort of typical coastal places you would find. We've also got a high number of households on the social housing waiting list, 6,500 people looking for a council house, with only 434 homes of all types being built every year. So you can see the challenges. So, I mean, if we were not, the point is, if we were not here, someone else will be here. There is a housing issue in Dorset which needs addressed. So this shows you Dorchester and the surrounding area, and you can see our site is just highlighted as above that says North Dorchester site. It's very faint, but you can just see the extent of land the consortium control. And this just, I've highlighted before that how long this conversation has been happening. North Dorchester was identified in the 1980s as an alternative site to Poundbury, but Poundbury was selected and moved forward. And ever since then, there's been numerous studies and conversations. We were a preferred option in the West Dorset draft local plan, but with the formation of the Unitary Council, that plan did not progress, and we started again with a Dorset-wide plan. That was posited as a potential option. Originally, that plan was paused. We've got a new council now, a Liberal Democrat controlled council, and they're starting a new local plan, and that's out for consultation right now. And again, North Dorchester has been identified as an option. I'll come on to some of the other aspects of the consultation in a moment. So this shows you, I did allude to the previous draft plan, and you can see that North Dorchester areas identified in orange. Now, just to be clear, that is not showing you where development will happen on every bit of that orange land. That includes all aspects, including floodplain, which will be protected, parkland, other infrastructure, so that these outlines do not show you where development will happen in its entirety. On the right is an extract from the new the draft local plan. which shows a similar area, but I would just say that the council are also consulting on a master plan which they have commissioned under the Garden Communities Initiative. Okay, that's a government initiative which the council have joined several years ago. They've got funding to do a master plan, and a firm called Hyas are helping the council achieve that. They are looking at a slightly wider area than shown on that plan. So, but that is on the council's website. You can have a look at that. We are supporting the council and Hyas. We're not involved in it. We are consulted on it, but we align with all the garden community principles, and we support the work Hyas are doing. So that takes me on to the vision for the garden community. It is an important chapter in the development of Dorchester. It's a huge responsibility. We all feel it. We all know it. And we see the opportunity to create a vibrant community. It's not just houses, it's houses with infrastructure and other uses which really bring a community to life. We know Poundbury. We think Poundbury's have been a fantastic addition to Dorchester. I hope everyone, I think I would expect everyone to agree with that. And we're looking to achieve a similar level of positivity for the town, and also respect its historic landscape character. So as I said to you before, we're not building on every piece of that land that's been identified. For us, it's about making sure we add in all the natural landscape that we need to create buffers and open space and amenity, not just for our residents, but also for everyone who's already living in Dorchester. So we enrich the experience for everyone. And we need space for infrastructure. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to the real professionals. I'm going to hand over to the architects, Brooks Murray, so they'll introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cosmo. I work with Brooks Murray Architects and Master Planners. I'm going to speak briefly about the principles behind the work so far before passing on to my colleague Valentina. As Chris has said, North Dorchester was designated a garden community in 2019. And there are a number of principles that govern garden communities and garden cities. And as you can see on your screens, hopefully, there are the Garden City principles developed by the Town and Country Planning Association. There were also the government's Garden Communities Toolkit principles. There were principles specifically developed for the Garden Communities bid for North Dorchester in 2019. And there are more principles in Dorset Council's draft local plan. These all overlap. At their heart, they all want development to be rooted in its place. That design stems from what already exists in terms of the local landscape, as Chris has referred to, in terms of existing communities and streets and buildings and town centres. And they want to ensure that development serves the competing interests of existing and future communities. And this is in part why we're here tonight. So we've distilled these various principles into 6 that underlie our approach to design. And I will run you through these quickly before Valentina and the rest of the experts take you through how that maps onto the proposals so far. But these are that North Dorchester garden community should be shaped by the land. This means the water meadows, existing hedgerows and mature trees, rooted in what's important in terms of, again, the water meadows, ecology, the history. Made for living, this means no dormitory housing, but a living, breathing, functioning places full of life and cafes, shops, schools, commerce. And connected. This means walking, cycling, vehicular routes that link neighbourhoods and schools and green spaces that we spoke about. And of Dorchester. So this acknowledges that any development in North Dorchester would be connected to Dorchester. It is part of Dorchester and it grows from it. And so it means not copying Cornhill or Fordington or Cornwall Road, but taking inspiration from them, and understanding what makes them beautiful and pleasant places and bringing this into North Dorchester. And finally, designed to be delivered. This means putting forward a clear plan of how to actually build this over the next 25 years and to root local ownership into this process, enabling future communities to steward the place and adapt in response to changing ways of life. So the rest of our presentation aims to show how these have led to the designs we're proposing, and I will start by passing on to my colleague Valentina to take you through the master plan in its current form.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Valentina Nullo. I'm an architect and master planner at Brooks Murray. Some of you maybe already met me last week at the public consultation. I will be down again next week if anyone wants to have a conversation. We'll take you through the key elements of our master plan as a new energy efficient family homes and affordable home for the 35% as affordable, a new link road connecting the A35 with the A37 by some improvement along the B147 and new active travel route across the meadow, a new business park to create a job and opportunity, education campus with primary and secondary school, medical facility as GP and dentist practice, ecological and enhancement by protecting and implementing the existing habitats, and last, protect and safeguard the existing water meadow and natural reserve. Here's the proposed master plan as it currently is, with 3 neighbourhoods shaped by the wild, dry valley and topography. As you hopefully can see, all the development is on the north of the water meadow. I will take you through the 3 neighbourhood in a minute. Currently, we can show the new link road with the 2 roundabout access point and the other Slayers Lane as a primary active travel route. On the green space, if you look at the dark green, those are the key landscape existing elements that shaped our master plan as the dry valley, rural edges, existing plateau where we chose not to develop to protect the view from North Dorchester and the countryside. There is an existing network of public right-of-way that we will preserve and expand to provide a better access in Dorchester. Highlighted in green, there are our current preferred routes to provide new connection to Dorchester on foot and by bicycle. Highlighted in blue is the current preferred location for the business park on the eastern edge of the development, close to the A35, just on the entrance of the new link road. Highlighted in red are the position of the educational campus with primary and secondary school. I'm sure we can talk about more about this in the Q&A session at the end or next week in person. Now we're going through the 3 neighborhoods. First of is the South Central neighborhood, which is the largest of the 3. It is set on gently rising ground east of the dry valley, making use of the site, natural contours, frame street, and public spaces. The dry valley remains as a green spine, channeling the view toward the Frome Valley and the town behind. As the heart of the North Dorchester master plan, the South Central neighborhood combines housing, shops, cafe, workspace, health facility, play area, and schools with easy access to walking distance. A clear network of streets links the South neighborhood to all neighborhood and to Dorchester town centre. The Frome-Whitfield neighborhood sits on the western end of the link road, is the more rural of the 3, and is closer to the most important habitat, ecological habitat of the site, currently on site. Now, the last neighborhood is on the north along Slayers Lane before reaching the plateau. Has a center and public square position essentially to work with natural site gradient and green corridor with SATs, which are the blue that you see on the plan, feature woven into this open space to manage water locally. It's retained the eastern edge road belt from and defined feature, providing both ecological value and a green backdrop to the development. Slayers Lane is designed as the smallest scale neighborhood, anchored by a local square with no residential use, such a corner shop or a cafe, that face directly into it. Play area, sport provision, and neighborhood park are all designed within a walking distance of every home. The mix of views combined with the parkland setting encourages social interaction and provide everyday amenity without needing to travel far. This slide is our proposal for beginning to develop on the eastern edge before moving west and north. The south central neighborhood phasing provide a function early on in the stage and service retail and public space from the early stage of the development. I will pass it to our landscape architect.
Thanks,
the natural
Valentina.
environment.
Thank you. So as Valentina has touched upon, in developing the master plan, we've been layering up the landscape features. This includes the public rights of way that cross the site, looking at the topography to ensure that the development parcels are positioned in the correct places within the wider scheme to ensure that we retain views and get the distribution of land uses across the scheme. In developing the landscape proposals, obviously we are protecting the water meadows, and this will create a large new area of public open space, which we will be enhancing and protecting for biodiversity enhancement. This will include a boardwalk to enhance access for local people into the site and connect into destinations within the scheme. We have, in terms of developing the proposals, we have acknowledged that there's lots of different views within the site, be these short range views or longer, and these have all been incorporated into the landscape master plan in terms of positioning open space so users can see the views into the town, such as the church spires, and appreciate the landscape surroundings. The landscape strategy that you see here obviously shows large areas of open space, which covers formal provisions such as play, sport, as well as natural open space, which will be multifunctional for sustainable drainage and ecology. We are obviously overlaying all of these elements in terms of developing the strategy further. One thing to note is the existing landscape framework of hedgerows and trees, which again is another layer that we are retaining and enhancing within the strategy. Overall, the water meadows is 27% of the site's area, with green space providing 35%. Overall, this means that there's circa 62% of the scheme is green space. Moving on to the next slide, these are some precedent images to show our vision for the water meadows and some areas of interpretation within the scheme, whether that's enhancing users' experience to highlight views into Dorchester, providing access across the floodplain, and providing interest to features within the landscape.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Alistair Atkinson. I've been working on the scheme now for probably about 4 years, and the watery issues, we know how important they are. We've sort of got 3 or 4 key principles we've been working behind. Firstly is understanding the flood risk. We've got the River Froome that we've been working on and modelling with the Environment Agency, and we're updating that to support the new planning application. We're testing that to deal with the impacts of climate change, so we understand that too. But we've also got the sort of overland flows that might come down the dry valleys that have been described in real extreme events. So we've left space for that water to flow through as well. So we're not putting any of the proposed development, any of the houses, any development within the floodplain. So it's all safe, and therefore we're not going to make it any worse. We're also then looking at how do we manage the runoff from the proposed development too. So through sort of sustainable drainage, focusing on where the water lands first, using permeable pavements, using permeable landscaping integrated into the development, we're managing that flow and returning as much as possible back to the ground to protect the aquifer. And as part of that aquifer process, we're having long discussions with Wessex Water about modelling the aquifer, understanding how the aquifer will operate now and in the future, and we're using the same sort of methodology and the same models as the Environment Agency and Wessex Water do themselves. So we're working with them to understand where the water comes from, where it goes to, and the infrastructure required.
Thanks, Alistair. Good evening, everybody. My name is Athol Noon. I'm a director of Markides Associates, and we're working on the transport planning of the new community. I'll just take a few minutes to explain the main transport features of the new community. As you've heard from others, the new community is planned to be a mixed-use community with schools, local centres, community facilities, and employment area, all within easy walking and cycling distance of the homes. This will mean that most day-to-day needs of residents can be met locally, which will obviously help to reduce traffic. But the garden community also is part of Dorchester, and the first two slides I've got on the images I'm showing here show our plans for walking and cycling on the left and bus links on the right between the two communities. The image on the left shows how we propose to create a core network of very high quality cycle and walking routes, both east to west and north south in the development, connecting up both within the development and to Dorchester. Dorchester town itself is about 20 to 30 minutes walk from the new community and about 10 to 15 minutes cycling time. And on the right-hand image, we show how we can propose to bring in a bus route from Dorchester into the community, making sure that almost every home is within 5 minutes walk of a bus stop, which leads to the key destinations in Dorchester. We believe that with the right connections, there's a lot of potential to encourage travel to and from Dorchester using these modes. My next image just shows the basic principles of a new link road that is proposed as part of the development. It runs east-west between the A35 just to the north of Stinsford roundabout to the B3147 just to the south of Weirs roundabout. The link has two main aims. The first is to provide an alternative route to the north of Dorchester east-west, and that provide between the A35 and the A37 for some of the traffic. And this will help relieve the traffic that's already using the southern bypass and the high street to make that movement. And of course, the second function of it is to help serve the new community, provide linkages across the community, and also provide capacity for it. The link road passes through the garden community in certain places, and is currently envisaged that it will be a single carriageway road operating at probably 30 to 40 miles per hour, and will be built in stages as the development progresses. And obviously these discussions are ongoing with the council about these principles. It will offer this new east-west route to the north of Dorchester for this key traffic desire line. And although it will also carry development traffic, it should bring important benefits to the wider Dorchester network. We are discussing the road and other potential improvements with the council and National Highways. And National Highways are currently just embarking on a study of the southern bypass junctions with the aim to try and relieve some congestion there as well. That's all on the movement. I'm sure there'll be some questions afterwards.
Okay, I'll just jump back in here. So just to run through some of the benefits, new homes is clearly the main benefit. New homes for all, and that's appealing to first-time buyers as well as young families and older residents who are looking to downsize. We're anticipating a diverse mix of housing, all sizes, all types. I would expect to see some apartments in there as well as affordable housing and buy-to-let, etc. In fact, this just makes that point. If the council decides to fix affordable housing at 35%, we could see up to 1,300 homes at various levels of affordability, from social rent right up to discounted housing for those with local connections. So that's really valuable in terms of providing an affordable way onto the housing ladder for local families and young people. Essential services. It's in the interests of the consortium, that people want to come to Dorchester, in particular North Dorchester, and live there. And to do that, we need the services, we need the shops, but we also need all the healthcare, the dentists, the doctors, and of course the schools. And we're in conversations with all those providers. We've had some interest from various parts of the NHS and doctor surgeries looking for opportunities to locate and expand in North Dorchester. And how these are delivered is a tried and tested method in terms of contributions, direct provision of serviced land, and in some case direct provision of services themselves. So, here's some of the other options. We're providing 4.5 hectares of flexible workspace and office hubs. That's new employment land for the county town. We know that the wider highest master plan will likely have 9 hectares. So, the employment is going to be quite significant. That's a great opportunity for small businesses. Crucially as well, the council's own evidence has identified that there is lack of opportunity to grow a diverse young workforce. The workforce within the county town is ageing. So North Dorchester will be really helpful in increasing a younger, diverse labour market, which will have benefits in terms of new industries, particularly in the creative and tech sectors. That employment will reduce in-commuting, hopefully see less congestion on the roads. The potential for apprenticeships and training partnerships is significant, particularly in construction. And of course, all those people living in close proximity to the town centre will increase the spend in the town centre, which is great news because all town centres are transitioning at the moment. They're shrinking their retail footprint. So to see that extra spend will be a major benefit. So here's our timeline. So a lot of this deals with the local plan and our own planning processes. So moving towards a planning application, an outline planning application to be put in at the end of this year with a supporting application for the first phase. Why are we doing that? It's because we've been looking at this site for a decade. We have a significant amount of technical evidence. We understand the site. We understand how you deliver it. We have seen various plans come and go. I think now is the time for us to actually support the council and put forward a robust technical evidence base as to how this site can come forward and be delivered. That's why we're doing it. We're also aware that with a massive shortfall in housing across the county is now very vulnerable to speculative planning applications coming forward in less sustainable locations, in more sensitive locations. We want to give the council the option of an early planning approval if it so wishes to take it. So when the council's plan is adopted in winter 2027, we want to be in a really strong position to put our foot to the floor and start developing the site. And you can see we want the first people to be living there by 2029. It's a big site, so it's going to take more than a decade to deliver, and that's why we're putting 2048 as an end date. Okay, Steve, back to you.
That's fantastic, Chris. Thank you very much. So we've had quite a few questions in, so we're going to get through as many as we can. I'm going to start off with a couple of questions, Chris, to you about principle of development and housing need. So the first question is coming in from Lynn. What evidence do you have for the number of homes required?
Well, that is the answer to that question starts with national guidance on what every local authority should be delivering for its area. The council can answer that question because it's in their evidence base that they've published alongside their local plan. So it is for the council and the government to determine what their housing need is. And we are responding to that. I will say, though, that the debate around looking beyond what's needed across Dorset, the need for the county town, for development of the county town, has been long established. And when the council was pushing through its last local plan in 2016, as I said earlier on, the local plan inspector, the independent inspector appointed by the government, he was very clear that the county town needed a housing solution. It needed more housing to continue to fulfil its role as the county town and reduce that jobs to homes imbalance. And he was keen to ensure that a plan for the county town was brought forward as quickly as possible. And he said by 2021. So we're already behind that for all sorts of reasons I'm sure we all understand. But so that housing need is there, but it's not us saying it, it's everyone else, including the government.
Thank you. There's also been a few questions about impact on business. So firstly, where are these employment opportunities? But also at the same time, we're saying that they will have positive benefit on the businesses in Dorchester, but there are also going to be shops in the new community. So how can it do both of those things at the same time, as the questions come in?
Oh, sorry, how can it do what at the same time? Just clarify that for me.
How can it support? Sure. How can it support shops in the existing town centre, as well as providing shops in the local centres on the new community as well?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and it requires a careful balancing. So we want to be sure we provide services which allow people to access most of their daily needs. Pint of milk, newspaper, some shopping, but what we don't want to do is put in uses which are going to compete with the sort of higher order uses you expect to see in the town centre. So we see Dorchester town centre as being the principal place that people will satisfy their major shopping and cultural needs. We will support it. We'll try and add depth and breadth to what Dorchester has, but we are clear we do not want to compete, and we'll be undertaking studies in support of our planning application to make sure we demonstrate that's exactly what we're doing, and we don't go too far and end up creating a satellite self-contained settlement that's doing its own thing. That's not what this is about. It's about reinforcing the county town, not distracting from it. It might be useful here for Brooksmurray just quickly flash up the plan showing where the employment areas are going. People aren't getting too dizzy with the slides. Yeah, okay, so there we are. So that's the blue area there is based right on the new roundabout on the A35. So we see that as being a highly desirable modern business area. But in addition to that, there's two things I need to point out. We do have our district centres within North Dorchester, and they will have additional employment through those day-to-day services I was talking about, but we also anticipate incidental employment, accountant officers, that sort of thing. In addition, if you look at the highest master plan, which we have not fully aligned with our plan, what I mean is we're not showing it, we're just showing our proposals at the moment because that's just been released. There's additional employment going to be located in the west, I believe, and we'll be helping support that. So that's where those opportunities are.
Thank you. This is a question that's come in about Poundbury, and there have been a few questions about Poundbury. It's a question from Ian, and this probably might be best picked up by Brooks Murray, and if not, I'll hand over to someone else. How do you think your development compares to Poundbury in terms of scale, but also style, timescales, and infrastructure?
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Can you hear us now? Yeah.
Perfectly.
Great. So we thought about Poundbury and we thought about Dorchester, the historical core, the part of the conservation area. We specifically decided to take reference to the old part of North Dorchester, the Dorchester instead of Poundbury. However, we did a study of the density of Poundbury, and we try to analyze it now in line with Dorchester to see where we can use and achieve the density. But Poundbury is quite dense, and we definitely try to avoid to have a higher density than Poundbury at the moment. In terms of aesthetic, Poundbury is well recognized as a pastiche architecture. At the moment, it's quite early in the stage. We want to finalize the proposal first for the outline application, and then going into the detail of the houses itself. Another thing, Pambury is based on cars, and it's really hard. The landscape, what we try to achieve here with the garden community principle is a more landscape-led environment with a more green space to drive the connection between places more than actual house surfaces. I hope it's enough.
Yeah, thank you. Alistair, I'm going to come to you for a few questions on water matters. Quite a few questions have come in about sewage and water supply itself. Are there sufficient is there sufficient capacity for sewage in the town? And also, what's the impact going to be on the water supply?
Okay, thanks, Steve. So we are having lots of conversations and discussions with Wessex Water about how we dispose of our sewage. We know about the existing capacity and the existing problems in the town, so we're fully aware of those. And as part of the planning application going forward, we will end up with a plan that shows how we will then how we can dispose of the sewage satisfactorily and where the treatment will happen. In terms of the water supply, again, the same conversations are happening with Wessex Water. As I said earlier, we're doing lots of modelling work to understand the capacity of the aquifer, and it's a very large aquifer that goes on sort of a sub-regional level. So the initial work we've been doing shows no impact on that. So I think we've got plenty of water there, but we're making sure that that's the case, and we're testing it quite thoroughly with Wessex Water and the Environment Agency to make sure that, that the long-term infrastructure is supplied and Dorchester is protected.
Thank you. Got another question here. The River Frome floods regularly after heavy rain between the two bridges just south of Charminster. After the land has been built on, this will presumably become much worse. What is the plan to prevent this?
Okay, thanks. So yes, we know about the River Frome flooding. We've been looking at it for some time. We've seen the floods, we've seen the wet where it gets wet, but we've also been working on some sort of hydraulic models that look at much more sort of extreme flooding. So look at the 1 in 100-year flood, or the flood that's got a 1 in 1% chance of happening any 1 year. So we understand how that's going to happen, what that predicted level is going to be now. We're also working on adding extra flow to that to allow for climate change. So we are currently testing up to doubling the flow in the model, which is the worst case scenario currently expected by the Environment Agency. So we understand that the flows in the river will change. So firstly, we understand that, and we're avoiding that bit. So we're not making that bit of river flooding any worse. Secondly, we're looking at the runoff from the development and using sustainable drainage, that we are looking to capture the water at source, where it's got from the roofs. Can we put it into the ground at source if the ground's permeable enough? We're also then looking at using the sort of sustainable drainage system to clean the runoff, attenuate the runoff and intercept it. So the first bit of it will be sort of very heavily managed, and it will go further, it will flow down through the system. So if we can't put it into the ground where it lands, because the soil over the aquifer is too impermeable, then we'll slowly discharge it back to the river at a rate that's substantially less, and a volume that's substantially less than the existing runoff rate now. So in both cases, we will end up having a beneficial effect from either not putting it into the ground or managing it through the development itself before it goes to the river.
Thank you, Alistair. Athol, I'm going to come to you now with a couple of questions about roads and traffic. So there's been a series of questions that have come in about the phasing of the road, and can the road not be built all at once at the beginning, and what's the estimated cost of how that works? So could you talk a bit about the phasing of the road through the development and how that will be delivered first, and then I've got a couple of others to come back to you on.
Thanks, Steve. Yes, yes. So the current intention is that the road will be phased in over time. It's obviously a huge bit of infrastructure for the site to develop, and it's envisaged it'll come in a series of stages as the development progresses. The discussion about those phases will be, will be ongoing with Dorset Council, but the intention is, it's unaffordable to build it straight up front. It's just going to be too expensive to do that. So it will be phased in.
Thank you. And a couple of other questions have come in. If you could describe a bit more about why the road is proposed to be a road with, through the community, single carriageway, as opposed to a faster dual carriageway road that would go through, and concern that actually won't relieve traffic that there might be. If you could just explain a bit about that, that'd be really helpful.
Sure. I mean, the actual approximate alignment of the road has been a long-standing aspiration of the council, going back some years, and obviously, for this garden community to deliver the road, we have to construct it on land that we can control and actually deliver. Otherwise, it'll just be a pipe dream. We can't do anything about it. So the alignment of the road tries to take into account the deliverability of it and how we can minimize impacts on the landscape and ecology, etc. We think that the intention of a single carriageway should be adequate for the types of volumes that will be using it. It does go through, it goes on the edge of the community for a lot of its length, but it does go through, particularly on the eastern side, it goes between the communities. And the intention is to just make sure that the traffic speeds are appropriate. There's obviously sufficient safe crossings for people across the road, and that it fits well with the rest of the area around it. But it has to perform a bit of a dual function. It has to provide for the linkages and the needs of this community, but also provide for the wider Dorchester community as well. And there's a balancing act between those two things, and we are currently, discussing the detail of those with the county and working out what the best solution is.
And one more for you, Athol, just on why the new road is not coming straight into the roundabout, the existing roundabout with the A27, and why you're creating a new junction. A few questions on that point.
Okay. Yes. So I think you're referring to the western side on the A37.
Yes. Sorry, the western side. Apologies.
That's right. Well, this is a point that came up at the public consultation I was at last week as well, and there's a few reasons for that. And one is that if we're trying to minimise the impact on the water meadows in this area, and if you go straight across to Wears Roundabout, you're probably doubling the length of any viaduct or road in that sensitive area. There's also some impacts on local landscape views and the views from listed buildings in that area. And there's also land ownership constraints towards the northern part of that area where we can't deliver the road because we don't have the land constraints. So the alignment shown is a kind of balancing of those issues to achieve a short distance across the creating a new junction there. We think the new junctions will work reasonably well because there'll be 2 3-arm junctions with the existing Wears Roundabout. And sometimes if you create a big junction with 4 arms, it's going to be a lot bigger, a lot more traffic, a lot more congestion. So we think it should work adequately, and we're discussing the details with the county, with the council. Sorry.
Thank you. Chris, coming to you on some infrastructure questions. So there's quite a few questions have been coming in about who's going to pay for this infrastructure. So there's lots of roads that need to be built and other big chunky bits of infrastructure. So who's going to pay for it at the beginning? And also then how will it be maintained moving forward? So how are the highways going to be maintained? How are the green spaces being maintained? And how are kind of other key bits of infrastructure being maintained? If you could just pick up those 2 points, that'd be great.
Okay, it's a combination of measures. So new roads would be delivered by the consortium. If that being said, there is the potential, as this is a garden community, then it may be that a body like Homes England might wish to fund particular bits of infrastructure so that they come forward a bit quicker. That's an option, but otherwise the consortium are working on the principle that we'll be delivering the infrastructure as we go along, and there will be stages where we deliver a significant piece of infrastructure and then the development comes up. In some cases, the development and the infrastructure is delivered side by side. Those roads will be adopted. They'll be built to what's called adoptable standards. I don't think we'll be relying on many private roads at all. The intention is to transfer them to local authority control, and they'll be maintained through general taxation, as is the norm. But of course, we'll be delivering a lot more local taxes through more rooftops. Other infrastructure, schools, will be funded by a combination of delivering serviced land and contributions towards the capital cost of the school, which will be achieved throughout the lifetime of the development. I would imagine there will be similar arrangements for health. That does not remove the need for central government and various funding bodies to continue to invest in healthcare in all communities, including Dorchester. But what I would hope to see is that with a greater population in Dorchester, I would expect to see the county town come up the agenda in terms of wider investment decisions made by these other bodies, such as the NHS. There will be other provisions which will be made directly by the development. That's community halls. We've talked about a cultural venue linked to the Hardy Trail. As part of the affordable housing delivery, we would like a conversation with the local community land trust to see how they might be able to benefit from this development. So it's mainly through direct delivery, direct development, and there may be other things we can do which might not be on site. Either people that might be investing in our site alongside what we're doing, or we could be investing in the county directly into the town centre, for instance. Instead of doing something on our site, we could do it in the town centre. And I know there's been aspirations for improved cultural activities within the town centre. That's something we can look at. Does that answer the question, Steve?
That does, thank you. We've had a few questions in from young people. So one is, I'm 23 and looking for a home. Can you tell me a bit about what this will do for me? And a question just in from Jasmine as well, 25 years old currently and thinking of potentially first time buying here. So just would like to understand a bit better timeframes. If you could just cover off those bits as well, Chris, that'd be great. Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, if it was up to us, we would like to be selling houses in 2029. And if it's up to us, we would be selling general market housing. But alongside that, we would expect to see starter units. What do I mean by that? That could be starter units in size, okay? But it could also mean in terms of affordability. So that could be discounted home ownership, okay? So if you've got a local connection, you can get a discount. There was the government's First Homes initiative. There could be similar initiatives later this decade. Shared ownership. So you only take out a mortgage for a part of the house, and the other part is rented, okay? And that's an affordable way to get onto the housing ladder. You could be a renter. You could take a more flexible arrangement. There could be rented accommodation, either apartment style or in single family housing. So we've got lots of ways for young people to get on the ladder. And we, this is not just about, the house. This is about the environment. So we want you to think about buying into a community and all that comes with it in terms of quality of life, access to open space, walks in nature, which we know is really important. That always comes up in surveys. All the other sort of day-to-day services you need, cafes, shop, etc. And being able to walk or cycle to your job. Those are the important bits. Thank you. I think this is probably a question I'm going to pass to Brooks Murray. It's around sustainable features that are likely to be present in the housing. So, what's the likelihood for solar panels, air source heat pumps, and will gas be used in the houses? If you could pick that up. I know we're quite a way away from the detail of the houses, and that will come in later applications. But just a bit of understanding of where legislation is going on those matters, that'd be really useful. Thank you. I can't hear Brooks Murray. I'm not sure if that's just me or anyone else.
Can you hear me, Steve?
Perfect. I can hear you now, Valentina. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Right. I was just to say, talking specifically in the detail, as you said, we're so far away. However, the principle itself is to try to build a sustainable community. In the term sustainability in all of the aspects of the development, no, just the infrastructure. In terms of houses itself, Granger and Wyatt are promoting this, but at the same time, we try to improve and put in place the sustainable principle of the new houses with sustainable material, innovation in construction, method, energy efficiency, fabric first approach. The air source heat pump has an element of heating the space. However, this will come later on, but nothing stops us to use some district approach as well in terms of renewable energy. I'm sure the commercial, the school element will provide a green roof, and we can talk about this more in the detail when we got an actual design for the houses itself, I would say. At the moment, it's just something that we want to consider is part of, as I said, is the sustainability overall part of as a principle more than anything else.
Just to amplify that, Steve, I mean, just on the district point, we would be looking at something to consider are district air source heat pumps. So rather than putting an air source heat pump on every house, you use much larger technology and run it from a district proposition, which serves a much larger neighbourhood. It's all centralised. So that's an option. And Valentina's absolutely right. There's the broader sustainability point about making sure people are living close to all the services in their work, their place of work.
Thank you. This is a question that I'm going to pass to Tim or Mo as the developer. So what's to stop you from getting planning permission and then just selling the site? If one of you could pick that one up, that'd be great.
I'm happy to pick that up from a White Homes perspective. We're currently building across a number of sites in Dorset and Charminster Farm up the road from Dorchester as well. We've got a little bit more to go at Charminster Farm, but we want to maintain a presence in the Dorset area going forward, and this would be an absolutely critical site for us to continue our business and to grow the business. We've got funding in place from Homes England to increase our rate of house building, to double our rate of house building over the next 5 years, and this would be a really important site for us going forward.
Thank you. Mohan?
Yeah, just to echo what Tim's saying, we do a variety of schemes across the UK where we've got a variety of different products, from new homes to rented properties to affordable housing homes ourselves. So we'd definitely be keen, just like our other bigger master development sites, to make sure we crack on with the delivery.
Thank you. I've got a question on ecology and biodiversity net gain. So one for Richard. Richard, can you talk a bit about the likely biodiversity net gain on site? And obviously policy states that should be a 10% gain. They're asking if it's likely to be higher than that, as there are particularly protected species and habitats in the area.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve. So we've done a lot of work in the master plan to make sure we are retaining all the high value habitats. So the water meadows, the parkland, the hedgerow network are all kept within the master plan. The intention to then enhance and manage those in the long term. We've got quite, as I think was mentioned in the landscaping slides, we've got significant areas of open space that we can take out of agricultural use and sort of produce a lot more semi-natural habitats. In terms of biodiversity net gain, the scheme will, from a statutory perspective, have to deliver a minimum 10%, which is a measurable and accountable method that's used to demonstrate biodiversity delivery. We haven't got a sort of a higher target in mind at the moment. We are working to maximise that as much as we possibly can, and also make sure that that is delivered with the development as the development comes forward.
Thank you very much. Chris, coming to you again on a couple of questions. One is around infrastructure. So we've talked a bit about the infrastructure of roads and but there's a lot of concern about what I'll describe as social infrastructure, particularly the NHS. So the impact that it's likely to have on the NHS, and what conversations have we had with the NHS and providers already, how that impact will be funded and managed. Obviously, because there is some concern at the moment in the community. If we could pick up that would be great. And also, how can commitments made now be guaranteed in the long run?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, well, we've had conversations with various parties from the NHS, including interesting doctor surgery. Doctor surgeries are businesses, and therefore a new doctor surgery to service North Dorchester is of interest, will be of interest to many parties. We have the land to do that, and also there are practices which have funding support to set up their business, the GP surgery business within North Dorchester, and we've had those approaches already. So I'm pretty confident that will develop as we get further into the process. There's not a huge amount I can say at the moment because it's all early conversations. Likewise, we've had some positive discussions with the NHS. I have to say, though, some of these services are, at the end of the day, they're taxpayer driven and determined. So there's only so much we can do. But as I say, we've got the land, and with Dorset Council, we would expect to develop a legal agreement alongside the planning application, which will set out how these services and when these services will be delivered. And our partners will also have a clear expectation about what they need to do to get themselves ready to do that. Okay, but we'll understand that we see ourselves as the enablers and the facilitators. So that's how that will work. There's some softer stuff such as community space, and that'll just be that the detail of when and how we do that will need to be determined, having regard to what reasonable number of homes you need to sustain a community facility, and also what potential partners are out there in terms of people who want to engage and work with it. Beyond that, though, we probably do need to set up some form of community interest company or trust, which will take on the management of open spaces in some of these facilities, and that's another option. We could look at sort of community asset ownership vehicles. We could work with existing organisations in the town who could diversify and add facilities onto their existing operations. And of course, we would expect that they would need some form of endowment to help them do that, or some ongoing payment from residents through a service charge to help support that. These things are all being done before and are being done now. We're not being radical here. This works successfully across numerous developments. I know a lot of people hear the horror stories when things go wrong, but there's often very specific reasons why that happens. But I think they can be confident that with an experienced operator like Grainger and a local house builder of renown like Wyatt, that we will go about things responsibly and in a structured way with all our partners.
Thank you. Richard, just a clarification point on the question about net gain. The question was actually asking specifically about net gain on site. I don't know if you could just talk a bit more about that. That'd be useful.
Yeah, sure. So, just to clarify, the question I raised concerns about whether that could be off-site, and yeah, the biodiversity again for this development will be delivered on site. There's plenty of room to do that, and the habitats we have on site that we're retaining and enhancing will deliver quite a lot of uplift. So yeah, the scheme's committed to on-site biodiversity again.
Thank you. Chris, coming back to you, I'm afraid. There have been a number of questions coming in about Thomas Hardy landscape and the impact of the development on that landscape. If you could just talk a bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you sort of map what are considered the known hardy assets of interest, there's actually none on our site beyond the water meadows in a generic sense rather than a specific sense. What we are, though, is the conduit between a lot of hardy assets in the town and to the east at Kingston Moorwood and also in the west in Charminster. So we see the development as creating the major opportunity here to help link those assets and create more of a story. At the moment, it's very hard to experience the water meadows in a sort of linear fashion. You're either at the edge or you're passing through them from north to south. What we want to try and do with this development is create a sort of wetland park, if that makes sense. There will be quiet areas for biodiversity, but we see the potential for creating more public access so people can begin to appreciate Hardy's landscape, because the development will be very filtered. There is significant screening on both sides of the valley, which screens a lot of Dorchester from the water meadows and screens a lot of North Dorchester from the water meadows. You can see on the plan, it's actually a really good plan to have up there. You can see lots of lines in amongst all that blue. Those are actually historic lines mapping the water meadows as they were, in the time Hardy was writing for. Not necessarily, I think they were in decline in Hardy's time, but in the period he was writing, they were very active. It was a very industrial, denuded landscape, the idea of multiple linear water channels. And as part of this proposal, we would like to try and recreate a small bit of that. So particularly in areas of public access, people just get appreciation of what the water meadows meant as a sort of highly industrialized agricultural landscape. And we think that would be a sort of nice element or feature within an overall narrative of the Hardy features across the district. So that's how we would propose to deal with that. We don't see ourselves as despoiling a particular asset, and we see ourselves as reinforcing and creating access to the water meadows. We're certainly not intending to build on the water meadows beyond any essential infrastructure.
Thank you, Chris. A question from Jack. This has already received strong opposition in previous years from thousands of local residents, such as the group Stand. Why do you think the residents want it now?
Why do they want
Chris,
it now?
that's one for you.
Yeah, well, look, we know there's a lot of people don't want North Dorchester. I have to say, when we've looked at this consistently, whether through our own extensive research and through people who attend our exhibitions over the years, it is true. The older you are and the more secure you are in your housing tenure, the less likely you will want North Dorchester. We understand that. The younger you are and the less housing options you have, the more likely you will support North Dorchester. And that's not, and I'll rephrase that. The older you are and more secure you are in your housing choice, wherever you live in the country, the more likely you will oppose new development near you. The younger you are, the less secure you are in your housing choice, the more likely you will support housing. That's picked up in national social attitude surveys run by the government, and it comes through in our statistics. We can't please all the people all the time. But what I can say is, I think the need for new housing around the county town has been long established and well understood. I know it's difficult for the town. Nobody likes change, and this is a significant change. We don't deny that. It is a significant change, but we are going to try and do this in the most responsible, sensitive way possible. And when it's done, I hope people will stand back. They might not like all of it, but I hope that at the end of the day they say, you know, this has added a lot more to the county town. And in some cases, a lot of people were saying, this is where I live there, and I really enjoy living there.
Thank you. A question around the timing of the consultation of the local plan and timing of the application of the local plan. Isn't it premature to seek planning permission for this site while the site options are under consultation through the council's local plan process? And then a separate question saying there are significant differences between the highest master plan and the North Dorchester Consortium master plan. If you could just cover off both of those points, Chris, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, I'll go back to what I've said a couple of times. The need for North Dorchester was identified in 2016. We've been very respectful and supportive of the various processes which have sought to try and address the inspector's concerns. And I think we're now on to our third or fourth local plan process. So we understand why all that's happened, but we've invested a lot of time and money in these processes, I think we've got to a point now where, well, if this is the final local plan process which will address the needs of the county town, if it is, after 10 years, we want to put all our evidence and all the work we've done over the last 10 years, we want to put it out there so you can all see how much consideration we've given to this, but also that the council has a substantial evidence base it can draw on in support of its plan, should it choose to select North Dorchester as an option. And also we wanted to send a signal to everyone that we are serious and we're not going away. I know that can be a bit of a difficult message, but you know, we are serious about responding to this need and doing it well. The other point about the highest master plan, I don't think we are that far apart, actually. I think we're pretty close. We've been talking to highest for many years. So we don't see us being significantly apart. Valentina, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we align with IS on the major principle of the garden community, both of the master plan providing a window of the wild. Both of the master plan and landscape led, in a way, recognize the importance of the existing landscape. We creating some walkable neighborhood, IS is creating the walkable neighborhood. There is some differences, yes, but there are both of that we are working together. We following the same principle. We're working with the council and we align on the major to provide the best possible outcome to this community in North Dorchester.
Yeah, exactly, Valentina. We are a garden community. The principles have been given to us by the government through the council, so we're all on the same page.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions, and then we're going to finish for the evening, so we're starting to run out of time. Alistair, just a clarity question. So you talked about water being stored and then discharged slowly. Can you explain a bit about exactly how and where that water will be stored?
Okay, thanks. So we've got a combination of, there'll be sort of swales and drainage areas within the roads and within the landscape adjacent to the roads. There'll be some areas within individual properties, and we've got some sort of much larger attenuation areas that could be capable of holding the water back at a sort of development block level, so at a parcel level as well. So we've got a combination of, as we go from the source to the sort of next scale up, dealing with all those. So in combination, they will hold back the water, they will attenuate the water, and they will lose some of the water as it comes down the hill. So that's how we propose to do it. That's all sort of part of the normal sort of sustainable drainage process. So it's all sort of used on other sites and can be used here as a sort of good way of managing the water.
Thank you. And then a couple of questions for Brooks Murray. The Slyers Lane neighbourhood is a long way from Dorchester. It shows the northern part as green space. How can that be useful to the other new neighbourhoods or Dorchester, given how far away it is?
I need to say that it looks far away on the plan, but all of the neighbours are 20 minutes max walking distance to each other. And well, it's not visible now, but in our master plan is actually create a series of active travel route, leisure route to provide a full connection between all of the neighborhoods. If I want to go for a walk and 20 minutes walk, it seems fair to me. So I'm not seeing it so far. It's just the location on the plan. But when you're actually going to walk through the neighborhood from Whitfield to the Slides Lane, and it will make it viable.
Thank you.
Could I just jump in there as well?
Oh, please do. Yeah, thanks, Robin.
Sorry. I think as well, in the distribution of public open space, we've been looking at the Fields and Trust standards. So whilst each neighbourhood has access to semi-natural parkland as well as amenity, formal space and sports, this is kind of distributed at a site-wide level as well as the neighbourhood level to ensure that there's that accessibility that Valentina touched upon at the neighbourhood and the doorstep level. So there's feature bits of parkland like the northern area as well as destination spaces within the wider site, ensuring that there is a fair distribution across all the different residents and users of the scheme. Thanks.
Thank you. And then Athol, a couple of questions for you about, firstly, how do we encourage active travel? Concerned that everyone will just revert to cars. So how can we actively encourage people to get walking and get cycling? And then a separate question about accessibility, particularly concerned that previous developments in the town have not been as accessible to those with disabilities as they could be. How can we ensure that's designed in properly into these proposals?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I mean, regarding the active travel, there's a variety of ways to encourage it. You know, first of all, within the community itself, is to make sure that there are good walking and cycling links to all the local amenities and between the communities, and that means that they're safe and secure, and also that it's probably quicker to walk and cycle to most places than it might be to drive a car. So the layout of the individual areas will probably mean that that's a much better place. Obviously, the next thing is having you know, for example, cycling, making sure that properties have enough room to park a cycle. We were talking today to the council about the existing cycle hire scheme in Dorchester and Weymouth and the Beryl scheme, and you know, thinking about loosely how that could possibly be linked to the new community as well, and they would welcome that. And obviously between the community and Dorchester, making good safe routes that are secure, lit, available all the time, that people feel safe using them, and they're actually probably going to be quicker than a car. You know, to actually get between the community and most of central Dorchester, I think will be quicker by bicycle than by car. Walking takes a bit longer, but it's still not a bad walk. You know, it's still 20-30 minutes walk from most of the community. I'm sorry, the other question what was about
accessibility. So yeah, accessibility for those with disabilities.
I mean, I think that the others on the team will also be able to answer this question, but broadly speaking, under the new the guidelines for home building, and I've dealt with the recent development somewhere else, there is a requirement to make sure that all the homes have a certain level of accessibility, and some homes have a much higher level of accessibility for different levels of disabled people in the area. And I think you'll find that all of our routes that we will plan for connections will be seeking to be accessible at the right gradient, the right widths, and the right facilities to enable the disabled community to move around the area. So that's almost a given now in most new designs. I'm sure Tim and Mo would support that with their developments that they're doing at the moment as well.
Thank you. And then one final question to Alistair before I then end the webinar for this evening. So Wessex Water stated this development could result in harm to the drinking water source for Dorchester, the Eagle Lodge borehole. How will our drinking water be protected? Will Wessex Water build a new reservoir?
Thanks. Yeah, another good question. So we are working with, as I said before, we are working with Wessex Water. We're doing the modelling of the impact of the development in terms of how the aquifer will perform in the future and how it will perform, how it's been performing historically. So we understand both of those. We will be demonstrating, we are sure that the work we're doing so far is showing that there isn't any impact on that on the level so far, but that we're just working through those numbers at the moment. In terms of the drainage that we talk about, we are looking to clean that as we go through it and make sure all the pollutants are removed from it. So we need to hit a certain standards before we can discharge that water back into the river or back into the ground. So we are sort of working with them about how do we design the place, how do we manage the place, and how does that fit in with Wessex Water. So this is an ongoing process that we're going through. We've been having monthly calls with them, and that process will continue as we get further and further into the development. So that's the process how we will be demonstrating that we're not going to impact on the aquifer.
And thank you. I know I said that was the last question, but I've just got one more to Chris. So we've had a question in about the impact on Kingston Moorwood from the development. So if you could just touch a bit about the impact to the college and the land that the college use.
Yes. So, well, first of all, I think there's minimal impact on the college physically, because what we're doing is on the other side of the A35, and there's a substantial buffer, so there'll be very little visual interaction between the college and what's happening at North Dorchester. I think there are arrangements with the Ilchester estate in terms of access to land. As we go through the process, we'll be talking to the college about that use. And we'll pick that up separately. I think there's already been discussions, and we'll continue those discussions.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all of those questions. We haven't managed to get to all of them, unfortunately, but hopefully we've managed to cover all the topics that have been raised by residents. If not, we'll get back to you in writing. Please do come along to the exhibition next week on Tuesday between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. And we look forward to seeing you there, and thank you very much for your time.